All right, let's get right into it. We're going to be looking at the ideas inside a book called Bitcoin Red Pill by Renato Amoedo and Alan Schramm. And I'll tell you right now, this is not your typical book about finance. No, this is an explainer of a really specific, really powerful worldview. A worldview that sees Bitcoin as something, well, something way bigger than just digital money. And right off the bat, the authors don't pull any punches. They kick things off with this quote from Morpheus in The Matrix. And that tells you everything you need to know, right? This isn't some dry investment guide. They're framing this as a massive, high-stakes choice. It's a choice about reality itself, between two completely different ways forward. So what exactly is this big choice they're talking about? Well, the core idea of the book, the whole thesis, is that Bitcoin is, get this, a full-blown moral, material, and technological renaissance. That's a huge claim. So our job here is to just unpack that argument. We're not here to agree or disagree, but to really understand the why they're making such a passionate case. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down, following the book's own structure. First, we'll look at the choice itself. Then we'll get into the problem they see, what they call diagnosing the sickness. After that, it's all about the solution, the cryptographic cure. We'll explore their vision for the future in life after the system, and we'll wrap up with the big question they leave us with. So what's interesting is that the book doesn't even start with Bitcoin. Nope. It starts with a pretty sharp critique of the world we're all living in today. The authors call it the legacy system. And, this is absolutely key. To get why they think Bitcoin is so necessary, we have to first understand what they think is so broken. And right at the very center of their whole argument is this idea of fiat currency. So what is that? It's basically the money we use every day, like dollars or euros. The crucial thing is it's not backed by a physical thing like gold used to be. Its entire value is based on one thing and one thing only: trust. Trust in the government that printed it. And the book's whole point is that this trust is, well, it's being shattered. Okay, now take a look at this. This chart is basically Exhibit A in the book's case. It shows the US monetary base, which is just a fancy way of saying all the dollars out there. And just wow, look at that leap. We go from about $800 billion in 2008 to $6 trillion by 2021. That's not just a little increase. According to the authors, this is the visual proof of a system just printing money like there's no tomorrow. And here's the other half of the story. It's the perfect follow-up. While all that money was being created, look what happened to government debt. This chart, also pulled from the book, shows it just exploding, from under $6 trillion to almost $28 trillion. The book's argument is simple. These two things are locked together: the money printing and the runaway debt, and it's a cycle that just can't last. So when you put all that data together, the authors come to a pretty bleak conclusion. And they put it bluntly: historically, every single one of these government-issued fiat currencies has eventually failed. They've all turned to dust. So in their view, what we're seeing now isn't some new phenomenon. It's just history repeating itself. So let's just quickly recap the diagnosis, right? According to the book, the sickness is this: you've got constant deficits and debt that's growing exponentially. All that new money destroys your savings through inflation. Savers are actually punished. And all this centralized control, they say, is a one-way street to what they call financial totalitarianism and eventually collapse. All right, so after painting that pretty dark picture of the problem, the book pivots. It says, okay, we've diagnosed the sickness, now here's the cure. And that cure, in their eyes, is what they called the cryptographic cure, which, of course, is Bitcoin. And the whole foundation of their argument for this cure boils down to this single number: 21 million. That's it. Think about that. Compared to a fiat system where governments can literally create endless amounts of money, here you have a system where the supply is absolutely fixed. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, period. For the authors, this hard cap, this absolute scarcity, is the ultimate antidote to everything we just talked about. So let's back up for a second. What is Bitcoin really? The book goes right back to the source, to Satoshi Nakamoto's original white paper. And the definition sounds simple enough: a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. But the magic words, the ones that change everything, are these: without a trusted third party. That's the whole ballgame. It's designed from the ground up to cut out the very institutions, the banks, the governments, that the book blames for the sickness. And the timing of its creation is just wild. The domain name gets registered in August of 2008. The famous white paper gets published in October, right as the global financial system is absolutely melting down. Then, just a few months later, in January 2009, the whole network flickers to life. with the creation of the very first block, the Genesis block.
And this part is just incredible. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Coded directly into that very first block was this headline from a newspaper: Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. For the authors, this is the smoking gun. It's definitive proof that Bitcoin wasn't some academic experiment. It was a direct, intentional answer to the financial crisis and the bank bailouts happening at that exact moment.
So if you boil it down, the book says this cure rests on 4 key pillars. You have absolute scarcity, which is the direct answer to endless money printing. You have decentralization, so there's no single person or government in charge to mess things up. Censorship resistance means nobody can just freeze your account. And permissionless means literally anyone can use it. You don't have to ask. See how that works? Each feature is a direct counterpunch to a flaw in the old system. Okay, so let's play this out. Let's say you accept the book's diagnosis, and you accept their cure. What happens next? What does the world actually look like after taking the red pill? Well, the book sketches out a pretty radical vision for the future, a world they call life after the system. It's a concept that's often called hyper-Bitcoinization. And the hero of this new world really is the sovereign individual. That's the core concept. The idea is that Bitcoin gives people a tool, a kind of financial lifeboat, to escape what the authors see as a sinking ship of failing government systems. It's a path to becoming truly independent with your money, totally outside the control of the system. So what would day-to-day life be like? Well, according to the book, the changes would be massive. They argue the governments wouldn't be able to enforce things like capital controls or certain taxes as easily. Things people buy to protect themselves from inflation, like real estate or even stocks, might actually get cheaper because money itself holds its value. And maybe most importantly, they predict a huge cultural shift, a return to long-term thinking and saving, this renaissance of low time preference. And to really get a feel for the passion behind this vision, the book uses this wild quote from Michael Saylor. He calls Bitcoin a swarm of cyber hornets. I mean, what a metaphor. It really captures how its supporters see it, not as a boring piece of software, but as this living, unstoppable, almost mythic force that's defending a new kind of truth. In all of this, the sickness, the cure, the vision of the future, it all leads to this one final point. The book basically boils everything down and leaves the reader with a fundamental choice, a choice with only 2 options. And here it is, laid out plain and simple: the blue pill versus the red pill. The book frames the blue pill path, the legacy system, as the road to more control, collapsing currencies, and decaying institutions. But the red pill path, the Bitcoin path, is presented as the way to individual sovereignty, sound money, real freedom, and that technological renaissance we talked about. I mean, you can't get a more stark choice than that, can you? And in the end, the book doesn't tell you which pill to take. It just leaves you with this one final, really profound question to wrestle with. In a world where institutions might be failing, is choosing a totally new, decentralized system an act of rebellion, or is it simply an act of survival? That's the question they leave you with, a pretty powerful thought to chew on.